Welcome back to the kitchen at Andersen Acres. Today we are going to be reviewing the Starfrit bread maker that I have because people asked me if I could do bread maker reviews. I obviously can't do a ton at once because I only own one bread maker at a time, but this one I actually am really enjoying. Sorry, I'm just moving that out of my way. But this is the Starfrit bread maker. It looks good. First impressions were, when I took it out of the box, nice and sleek. Doesn't take up a ton of space on your counter. Okay, so it's fairly narrow. Still does give you two choices in loaves of bread. So you do get both a 700 gram and a 900 gram loaf of bread out of this. The 700 gram is about 3 cups of flour to 1 cup of water. The 900 gram is about 4.5 cups of flour to 1.5 cups of water. So two different sizes. You only have the two different sizes. Sometimes with a horizontal bread maker, you have 3 sizes. This you only have 2. So I also like this thing here. This is a detachable fruit and nut dispenser. So you can take it out, you can wash it, open it up, put your fruits and nuts in there. I like this because it is detachable and it does attach very well. We're not going to be using the fruit and nut dispenser, as in I'm not going to put fruit and nuts in there, but I am going to leave that setting turned on just so we can see it open up and that it would dump fruit and nuts on command. So I like that all the cycles are indicated on the top here. I like the viewing window, and I like the variety of controls and how it tells you exactly what's happening. I also like the bread pan. The bread pan is a nice, decent guy. Okay, he's a good size. The seal at the bottom is good. I've had this sitting with the ingredients in it for a few minutes now, and there's no leakage out the bottom. And I've had this bread maker for about 4 months now. So if I've used it that many times over 4 months and there's no leakage at the bottom, then the seals are actually really good. I go through bread makers about 1 every 9 months. That doesn't tell you anything about the quality just because of the amount of time I spend using them. Probably mixes about 600 loaves of dough a year, and it probably bakes about 10 of them. I don't typically bake in here. I will for the purposes of this little review. So, as per the manufacturer directions, we loaded our bread pan with the liquid on the bottom. That's usually what you do. And flour and yeast on the top. So we're dropping this in as per the manufacturer directions, twisting it to lock it in. Good lock, nothing happens. Close that up. On our settings, we are going to choose the first setting. Because it's white, I'm just doing basic white loaf. I am going, so you can change the settings here to how dark your crust is going to be. I'm leaving it on the default of medium. This one changes the size of your loaf. So this is going to be 700 is what I'm setting it for. 900 would be a few minutes longer for baking. Not by much, but a little. So we're leaving it there. This is for kneading, if you only want to mix your dough. That is for baking, if all you need to do is bake it. And this is just for customizing. We're not going to customize for the purpose of this review. I can also turn the nut dispensing on and off. So that is off. That's on. I don't have any nuts, so I could do it like that, but for the purposes of the review, I'm going to leave that on. And we'll come back and see how it's doing. We'll probably fast forward through parts of this or even delete it entirely. But we are going to turn this on. One touch, you just hit start, and it starts mixing away. I'm not going to lift the lid because you're not supposed to lift the lid, but it is mixing in there. Okay, so we will come back in a few minutes and see if the nut dispensing worked. So that sound you just heard was the nuts dropping out of the little nut holder, the fruit and nut holder here. You did see the little door go down. It kind of happens in 3 stages. It goes tick, 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 and dumps all the nuts in. It does take about half an hour into the mixing cycle because this bread maker does an initial mix, then a rest, then another knead, and then it'll get to a rising cycle in a few minutes. Almost a few minutes. It'll take a little bit. But that little dispenser really works quite well. Now you're going to see there's a bunch of steam starting because now the bread maker is producing heat for the rising cycle. So you don't want to open the bread maker now, which is why we're not going to open it and look at the dough. We can just look through the little window. That's it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to ignore it now until it starts to bake. And then we will just make sure it's not lighting anything on fire. It shouldn't, but you never know. So don't open your bread maker when you hit this phase. It is normal to see condensation on your little windows or your little nut container. That is completely normal for any and all bread makers. So we'll come back and see how this one's doing in a little bit. All right, our loaf is in the final minute of baking. I'm just grabbing a heat plate and an oven mitt, or a second heat plate, whatever I come out of the drawer with, so that we can take this out. After it's done baking, we're going to have to let it cool about 10 to 20 minutes before we take it out of the pan itself. You'll see there is still quite a bit of condensation in the nut container, and there's a little bit of condensation around the edges of the viewing window. That's normal because it does keep the humidity inside. It helps it rise, and then when it's baking, it doesn't really release that. So that is normal. Be careful. There it goes, it's done. Be careful of touching the sides of your bread maker no matter what model you have. They do get very, very hot. So we're going to lift it up by the tabs. I do like that this model has little tabs that you lift it up by so that you don't burn your fingers. Then we're going to lift this out of here without burning our fingers. Ouch. Put that up there. Don't use your bare hands. I know I just did, but don't do it. So then we are just going to take this out, come over here, and we are just going to let this sit for a few minutes before we take it out of the bread pan. All right, so we're just going to let it be. Sorry about jostling the camera, but we're just going to let it be for a few minutes. You don't want to shake it out immediately. Give it at least 5 minutes, preferably closer to about 10 minutes. But we will come back in a few minutes, take this out, and see how it's looking. All right, so our bread has been cooling a few minutes, so what we're going to do now is take it out of the pan. Luckily, it's a good non-stick pan, so a little bit of shaking and it comes right out. Look at that. In this case, the bread paddle actually came out in the pan, no big deal. This particular bread maker does come with this little hook. If your bread paddle is in your bread, you just take your little hook, stick it in there, fish the hook out, and pull it straight out. It also comes with this little measuring spoon with a tablespoon and a teaspoon. I don't find that useful. I find this is a little bit ridiculous. This little hook to get your kneading blade out is fantastic. This, I could do without it. It's not something I ever use. But if you do need one, this bread maker comes with it. So we're going to let this cool fully, and then we're going to come back and slice it, and we'll see what it looks like inside. That is how we decide whether or not this bakes decent bread. So we'll be back in about 40 minutes. All right, our bread is done. Let me just give it a quick slice. Cut it about here, and we'll see how it looks inside. See, no air bubbles. It actually looks fantastic. So that bread maker is actually really good. The Starfrit bread maker is really good. What don't I like about it? Well, let's go over here and talk about it. I like almost everything about this. There's just one thing I really do not like. I like how sleek it is. I like how pretty it is. I like that you can use it pretty much without a manual because it has all the information on the actual plate, the face plate. It even tells you what everything means up here. So if you don't know what a button means, it tells you. I love almost everything. There is one flaw that I wish would be corrected. This little nut container, I love the nut dispensing. I love it. This is a great little nut container. However, when you're using the dough settings, so you're just making dough, you're not baking in here, you can't use this nut dispenser. It doesn't work. It says that right in the manual. This does not work with the dough setting. I do not like that. I still love this machine overall. It's very, very good. It's very accurate. It doesn't take super long to bake your loaves, so you're done in about 3 hours most of the time. But I just really do not like the fact that I can't use this fruit and nut dispenser with a dough setting. Other than that, It's fantastic. I do really love this bread maker, and I would buy it again. I just wish they'd fix the nut dispenser. I wish they'd make that so that it works with the dough setting. Other than that, it's a fantastic bread maker. So that's about it for us today. I will put a link in the description to this bread maker. I got mine off Amazon, so that's what I'll link to. And I will put a link in the description to the bread I made today. It's just my basic white bread, but I'll put a link just in case you haven't seen that particular video. But that's the recipe I used today. So other than that, we're pretty much done for the day. Tomorrow we're probably going to bake some kind of sub bun because it'll be sandwich day. Anyway, that's it for us today here at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.